The movie opens in an underground fight club, and right away, the vibe is clear. This is not a friendly neighborhood boxing class. This is the kind of place where people come to make money, lose teeth, and regret their life choices. In the middle of the ring is a guy named Carter, and he's absolutely dominating. One opponent after another goes down, and honestly, at this point, it looks less like a competition and more like a highlight reel. Watching all this from the crowd is a woman named Frankie. She's not here for entertainment. She's here for business. Her bar has been attracting the wrong crowd lately, and she needs someone who can handle trouble. After watching Carter knock out yet another guy, she's convinced she's found her man. But then the announcer makes an offer. Whoever fights Carter next and wins gets all the prize money. That's when a quiet guy in a hoodie steps into the ring. Now Carter looks confident at first, until the guy removes the hoodie. The moment he sees his face, Carter's entire attitude changes. Because this isn't just some random fighter. This is Dalton, a former UFC champion. And suddenly, Carter wants absolutely nothing to do with this fight. The announcer tries to tempt him with money, but Carter basically says, "I like my face the way it is," and walks out. Dalton wins the money without throwing a single punch. Frankie, watching all this, realizes something important. Carter might be strong, but Dalton is the real deal. As Dalton heads to his car, a guy who lost money betting against him tries to stab him. And here's the crazy part. Dalton doesn't panic. He just calmly looks at the guy and asks if he really thought this through. The attacker immediately changes his mind and runs away, leaving the knife behind like a very awkward apology. While Dalton is casually treating his own stab wound, because apparently this is just a normal Tuesday for him, Frankie approaches and offers him a job. $5,000 a week to work security at her roadhouse. Dalton refuses. First, because despite his reputation, he's clearly not in a great place mentally. On the drive, we see how broken he actually is. At one point, he even drives his car onto railroad tracks in front of an oncoming train. Then, at the last second, he changes his mind. Unfortunately, his car doesn't cooperate, and the train destroys the back half of it anyway. Dalton survives, but at this point it's clear this guy's life is kind of a mess. With no car and no real direction, he calls Frankie and accepts the job. Dalton arrives in a small town called Glass Key, and like most small towns in movies, everyone already knows everything about everyone. He meets a teenage girl named Charlie and her father, who run a bookstore. They point him toward the bar. The place is literally just called the Roadhouse. No fancy name, no branding, just chaos with a sign. When Dalton walks in, one of the workers immediately recognizes him. Word spreads fast, and the staff quickly realize they just hired someone very dangerous. First, the bar seems calm, but that doesn't last long. A fight breaks out, bottles start flying, and the band is literally playing behind a protective net like they've accepted their fate. Then a biker gang shows up and starts harassing customers. Instead of jumping straight into violence, Dalton tries something different. He calmly asks them to step outside. They refuse, so Dalton walks outside and casually knocks over their motorcycles. Now they have no choice but to follow him. Outside, he gives them one last chance to leave peacefully. He even asks if they have medical insurance and how far the hospital is. And honestly, that might be the most polite threat ever. When they attack, Dalton takes them down quickly and efficiently. Broken noses, broken arms, the usual. But then he does something unexpected. He drives them to the hospital himself. Because in his words, nobody really wins a fight. At the hospital, a doctor named Ellie treats his earlier stab wound. She asks him if he enjoys fighting. Dalton says something important. No one wins a fight. That line tells you a lot about his character. This isn't a guy who likes violence. This is someone who's lived through too much of it. Back at the roadhouse, Frankie is impressed, and Dalton decides to stay on a nearby houseboat, which, by the way, Frankie owns. She even warns him there's a crocodile nearby. And yes, that detail will matter later, because this movie clearly believes in surprises. Over the next few days, Dalton starts bringing order to the roadhouse. Instead of fighting every night, he trains the staff to handle situations themselves. He turns a waiter and a former boxer into a security team, which honestly is great management. But while things are improving, trouble is building, because the biker gang wasn't acting alone. Somewhere else, a wealthy man named Ben Brandt learns that Dalton is ruining his plans. He wants the roadhouse shut down so he can build a luxury resort, and this one skinny bouncer is now his biggest problem. And when rich villains start saying things like, "Handle it," you know things are about to escalate. Meanwhile, Dalton is still haunted by his past. We see flashes of his UFC career and the moment that ruined his life. A fight where he didn't stop in time and accidentally killed his opponent. That guilt is the reason he lives the way he does now. He's not just fighting others. He's trying to control himself. And unfortunately for everyone in this town, that control is about to be tested. After Dalton takes control of the roadhouse, things finally start changing. For the first time, the place actually feels like a business instead of a nightly survival challenge. Fights become rare, customers start behaving, and the staff slowly gain confidence. Dalton isn't just throwing people out anymore. He's teaching the team how to handle situations before they turn violent. And honestly, that's what makes him different. He's not just strong, he's disciplined. And discipline is way more dangerous than brute force. But of course, peace never lasts long in movies like this. Because the man behind all the trouble, Ben Brandt, is not happy. Brandt is a wealthy developer who wants to buy up the land around the area and turn it into a luxury resort. The problem is, the roadhouse is one of the last places standing in his way. Before Dalton arrived, chaos and violence were driving the business down, which made it easier for Brandt to take over. Now the place is improving, which means Dalton just became a problem. And rich villains don't like problems. Brandt decides to send a message. One night, his men show up at the roadhouse looking for trouble. This time, they're not just random bikers. These guys are organized, aggressive, and clearly there to start something. Dalton tries his usual approach first. Calm voice, polite warning, chance to leave. But these guys aren't here to listen, so the situation turns into a full fight. And once again, Dalton handles it efficiently. No wasted movement, no unnecessary aggression, just clean, controlled takedowns. The staff step in too, using what Dalton taught them. And for the first time, the roadhouse team actually holds their own. The message is clear. This place isn't easy to mess with anymore. But Brandt doesn't stop there. If intimidation doesn't work, he moves to destruction. One night, Dalton wakes up to flames. The roadhouse is on fire. And suddenly, everything he worked to fix is gone in minutes. Watching the building burn, you can see the anger building inside him. He's been trying to avoid violence, trying to keep things controlled. But Brandt just made this personal. The next day, Dalton goes to see Brandt directly. Now this meeting is interesting because Dalton doesn't threaten him. He doesn't yell. He just calmly tells him that burning the place down won't solve anything. Brandt, of course, acts confident and untouchable. He offers Dalton money to leave town and stay out of his business. And this is one of those classic movie moments. Because if Dalton accepted the money, the story would end right here. But he refuses, because at this point, it's not about the job anymore. It's about standing his ground. Meanwhile, his relationship with Ellie, the doctor, continues to grow. She sees a different side of him. Not the fighter, but the quiet, thoughtful man who avoids conflict whenever possible. But she also knows something else. That control he has is holding back a lot of anger. And if that control breaks, things could get ugly. Back in town, Brandt decides to escalate again. This time, he sends his most dangerous man, a professional fighter named Knox. Unlike the others, Knox isn't reckless. He's calm, skilled, and clearly enjoys hurting people. And when he shows up, you can immediately tell this isn't going to be a normal fight. He attacks Dalton without warning. The fight is brutal and much closer than anything we've seen before. For the first time, Dalton actually struggles. Knox is fast, strong, and completely ruthless. Dalton barely manages to survive the encounter, and it becomes clear that Brandt is done playing games. This isn't intimidation anymore. This is a war. And now Dalton faces a difficult reality. He came to this town to avoid violence. He tried to fix things peacefully. He tried to stay in control. But the more he avoids the fight, the bigger the fight becomes. And the worst part? Brandt isn't just targeting the roadhouse anymore. He's targeting Dalton and the people around him, which means the situation is about to get much more dangerous. because Dalton might not like fighting. But if someone threatens the people he cares about, he won't hold back. After the attack from Knox, Dalton finally understands something. This situation isn't going to calm down on its own. He tried being reasonable. He tried avoiding unnecessary fights. He even went directly to Brandt to settle things peacefully. But Brandt isn't interested in peace. And now things start getting worse. Brandt's men begin causing trouble all over town. Businesses are threatened, property gets damaged, and people start feeling unsafe. The message is clear. Anyone connected to Dalton or the roadhouse is now a target. This is no longer just a business conflict. It's intimidation, and the pressure is building. Dalton decides to confront Brandt one more time. Not with anger, not with violence, but with a warning. He tells him to stop targeting innocent people and to keep the conflict between them. But Brandt, confident in his money and power, laughs it off. In his mind, Dalton is just one man, and one man can always be removed. That's when Brandt gives the order to Knox. Finish it. From this point on, the tension keeps rising. Knox starts following Dalton, watching him, waiting for the right moment. Unlike the other attackers, Knox isn't emotional or reckless. He's patient, and that makes him dangerous. Ellie is in danger. The people at the roadhouse are in danger. And for someone like Dalton, protecting others has always been his real instinct. The final confrontation begins when Knox attacks him again. This time, the fight is longer, harder, and more brutal than anything before. Both men are exhausted, both injured, but neither backs down. And this fight feels different, because Dalton isn't just defending himself anymore. He's fighting to end this. After a long and violent struggle, Dalton finally defeats Knox. It's not clean and it's not easy, but for the first time, the biggest threat is gone. But the story isn't over yet, because the real problem was never Knox. It was Brandt. Dalton goes directly to Brandt's house to end everything. And this moment shows how much he has changed. Earlier in the movie, he avoided conflict at all costs. Now, he walks in knowing there's no other way. Brandt still believes his money and influence will protect him. He threatens Dalton, confident that he can escape any consequences. But this time, Dalton doesn't walk away. The confrontation turns violent, and after a final fight, Dalton defeats Brandt, ending his control over the town. For the first time since the beginning, the threat is gone. No more intimidation, no more hired fighters, no more pressure, just silence. After everything is over, Dalton finally allows himself to step away from the constant conflict. The roadhouse is rebuilt. The town begins to return to normal. And Dalton, who spent the entire movie trying to control his anger and avoid violence, finally finds something he didn't have before: peace. What makes the ending interesting isn't the fights. It's the idea behind his character. Dalton was never someone who enjoyed hurting people. Every fight he avoided, every warning he gave, every chance he offered for people to walk away. Because to him, fighting was always a last resort. And the real story isn't about a tough guy beating everyone. It's about someone trying to stay in control, in a world that keeps forcing him to lose it. And in the end, he doesn't win because he's stronger. He wins because he only fights when he absolutely has to. Thanks for watching. Please consider liking the video and subscribing if you enjoyed the content.